Okay, so now that you have a general understanding of transforms, we are going to transition them, and then we are going to animate them. Who here has done a transition before? Who here has changed colors on a link before? Okay, let's ask this question again. Who here has transitioned something before? Okay. This is a transition over 0 seconds. Wow. Okay. This is a transition over 1 second. It's a transition. Really complex. So the thing is, we are changing a property. We're changing the color property over an amount of time. So we have 4 properties that we can declare, or we can declare the shorthand. We tell it which properties we want to declare. So I like to say by declaring the transition property, because redundancy is awesome. How long we want it to take. Timing function is a Bezier curve that I will cover more in depth in animation, so don't worry if you don't understand the Bezier curve now. And then delay. And delay, you'll see in a second, is pretty important. So we stopped prefixing these recently in Firefox 16 and in IE10. And so I assume Chrome and Safari are going to follow suit. So transition. This is a crappy transition, but it is a transition nonetheless. Can you see why it's crappy? Because it looks like crap, right? That is why it is crappy. This is very technical. The reason that it's crappy is because I am transitioning background size. I mean font size. And when you transition a font size, you're changing the size of the element. When you're changing the size of the element, you are reflowing that element and all the elements afterwards, and then you are repainting it. When you are transitioning something just like background color, you are only, or transforms, it's taken out of its stacking context, and you are only resizing that element, and you're just repainting it. You are not reflowing the whole page. So here we have resized font size, the color, and the background color. You can't really tell the background color. But when I hover over it, because it says code hover, it goes from this to that over 2 seconds, but it waits 50 milliseconds to do it. So you see background, when I take it off, it's doing the same thing. The reason I wait 50 milliseconds is because if I do that, I don't want it to start animating, because that would be annoying, right? But if I do it slowly, it starts. So it's to basically not shock the user. I have also told it to do all the properties. You see the word all right there? So all the properties are the 3 properties here. The color is declared in both, the font size and the background color is declared in both. Notice that the transition is in the pre-state. The reason is because I'm transitioning from code to code hover. But what if it was from code to code with class foo? It would have to be hovered while in the class changes for it to transition over time. Otherwise, it would just transition. That's why I put in the before state, so that any other time that it changes, it gets impacted. Okay. So had I not wanted to do that, if I had only wanted to do 2, instead of all, I could have just done color and font size, and that these, notice, are comma separated. When we did multiple transforms, they were space separated. Properties here are comma separated. So this one looks much better. Does the same thing, right? Except for it's nice and smooth. Because I am not reflowing my whole page. I'm only repainting my code div, that section. Because font size is still 85, but I am scaling to 1.4, right? Again, this is the code, basically. Transition, transform, 2 seconds, ease in, 50 milliseconds. Okay. So what can be transitioned? What properties can be transitioned? They're going to try to make it so that any property is transitionable, but right now it's only properties where you can figure out what an intermediate value is. So for example, code opacity 1 to opacity 0, what's the midpoint? I'm going to sneeze. Sorry. Okay, so the midpoint is 0.5. So this is not a real pseudo class. I made it up. So don't use it in production. But it's just to explain a point, which is the halfway mark is 0.5. Whereas code display block to display none, what is the midpoint between block and none? What? Half a block. Which is how much I exercise every day. So no, there's no midpoint, so you can't transition it right now. Font size 100% to 120, midpoint is 110. Height auto to height 1000, there is no midpoint. So a good solution for this would be min height 0. So that would be auto, right? If a minimum height of 0, if it needs to take 40 pixels, it'll take 40 pixels. So that is the same thing. And min height 1000, it'll grow to 1000. So you can just use min height instead of height, and you're all good. You just can't use the key term auto. Transitionable properties. These all have a midpoint, except for one, visibility. So what happens with visibility is right before it reaches 100%, it switches to the value. Okay, so we have this pencil, and we're going to transition it. We're going to rotate it and scale it when we hover over it. Whee! And notice the transform origin, 100 pixels by 123, which I just happened to measure, and is that green little mark right there. That was just so that it wasn't, so I wasn't doing this, I was actually doing something a little bit more interesting. Okay, so that is transitioning transforms, making it rotate over 1 second, and that's pretty simple. So, transitions, it's a single iteration that you have no control over. It goes from keyframe 0 to keyframe 100, and you can't tell it what to do in between. It just does it. When you reverse it, it goes back to the original state in the reverse order. So it goes from 100% to 0. There's limited methods of initiation, and you can't force them to finish. So when I'm going over my pencil, and I go off my pencil, I can't force it to finish. There's no API to go along with it. So in the real world, how do we use this? Have you guys done drop-down menus? This looks like a drop-down menu, right? There is no JavaScript here. All I said is, and this is going to make sense to you. It wouldn't have made sense to you this morning, but it makes sense to you now. Any li that is the direct child of a ul, that is the direct child of a nav, displayed inline block and make the position relative. So that's these four. The top four ones, right? It is not the children. Nav ul means the children, the unordered lists that are children of these parents. Scale it, 100% is wide, 0% is tall. So I'm basically doing this to it, right? Here's my phone, I'm scaling it so it looks like this. It's 100% is wide, but it's no height. So that's why it's hidden. Transform origin is the top center point. So when it's here, right, it'll transition like that. Transition over 0.2 seconds and wait that 50 milliseconds because you don't want this to start popping open when someone just mouses over it. Yeah. Okay. Position it absolutely. Top 100%, so it'll be positioned right there. And when I mouse over it, all it does is scale to 100% as tall, starting from this center point right here, because it was already the correct width. So this works in all browsers because browsers don't understand transform, don't understand this, and you just do on hover display none and display block, right? Because you are only transitioning, we actually should, for that, we should just transition the transform, not the display. But not that I would just do the display anyway. So right when you hover it, all of them show. And the ones that can animate open. So the one that can't animate, just pop open without any animation. And do you really need the animation? IE6 does not need the animation. Okay, so what can we do with this? This is what we can do with this. We're putting everything together that we've done today, and we're doing stupid shit. So here we have the A that flipped over. And then we have the other A, and I'm totally cheating at whatever game I'm playing because I only have aces. No images are used, right? No actual images. Just so you know, in this entire deck so far, I've used 4 images. All day, right? We've been here all day. 4 images. I have the icons for the browsers. 5 because I added the cat. The border radius, not the border radius, rather. The icon for the images, the shark, the cat, and the other, that little gradient that we use for background size, background border image. So it is 4. Everything else has been gradients. So this is a gradient with generated content. The background is just a gradient. Because you can do really, like this was just a mistake, and I'm like, that looks perfect for a deck of cards. So remember how, like, when you mouse over something? Let me actually get the last card there. Okay, so you see I'm no longer moused over it, but it is not moving back. Does anyone know why? This is a trick question. You probably don't know why. You do know why?
It's remembering the original position for what it considers the image.
No.
You had to move the mouse in.
That is correct. So when you do hover, mouse in and mouse out, it would basically take all of the browser's time to be saying, where's the mouse, where's the mouse, where's the mouse, where's the mouse. So it doesn't actually measure it until you move it again. So the second I move it, it'll pop back. So if I go on it, if I move it to here, it'll just pop back. But if I actually move it off, but if I keep moving it, it just flutters. And so that's kind of a shitty user experience. This right there is a really shitty user experience, right? And so that's, well, let me cover one more thing before we get to animation. That is why we have animation. But the other thing I want to cover is back face visibility. Because when I flip the card, the back face visible is gone. Because that back of the card is a div that comes before the ace. The ace is on the back side. So I have a front and a back in a parent div. When I flip it, I say, if you're hidden 180 degrees, if you're flipped 180 degrees, don't show me the back of that div. And that's this line right here. If I took that out, this is not a dynamic page at all, so I can't show you. But if I took that out, you would just see this card inversed, which is not what you